Hi everyone, thank you very much for stopping by and returning to the Old World. Firstly, for those of you who celebrate it, I hope you had a very Merry Christmas and had a great holiday over the period. Looking forward to the new year. Now on Boxing Day, 26th of December, Games Workshop released some more information about what we can expect for the release of the Old World. There's again quite a bit of information here for us to unpack. Some positive, quite a lot positive I think, but also some of it a little bit frustrating. Given the time of year, let's get the frustrating stuff out of the way and look at the books. Now, I think overall there's a positive here in that the rule books needed for Warhammer the Old World are going to be released separately to any of the model releases, which means if you're an existing player or you've already got access to models or don't want to play the factions being released initially, in this case being Tomb Kings and Bretonnians, you don't need to buy a load of models you don't want in order to access the rulebooks. And that's really positive. However, and there's always a however, unfortunately, with these things, and that is the number of books that you need to get. Now, obviously, you need the rulebook. That's always going to be expected with absolutely any game, and we were always expecting a Ravening Horde style book for the various factions. We now know for definite that instead of being individual army books, most of the army lists are going to be contained in army list Ravening Horde style books. One of them for the forces of good and one of them for the so-called forces of evil, although that does include the Tomb Kings in the forces of evil, which could also be said to be more neutral. So in the good book, we're going to see Dwarves, the Empire, Bretonnia, Wood Elves, and High Elves, and in the evil book, we will see Tomb Kings, Beastmen, Warriors of Chaos, Orcs, and Goblins. The evil faction book is going to be a little bit smaller, 160 pages, as opposed to the 192 pages for the forces of good. Now, Games Workshop have said in their article that the Ravening Horde books are and rulebook will be all you need in order to play a particular faction, as each army will get an introduction, a gallery of miniatures, a grand army composition list, a complete set of profiles, special rules, magic items, and unique spells. So that seems pretty positive. We only need a couple of books and we don't need to buy the models. And this, however, is where we get to the however moment. And the however moment is the arcane journals. So these are going to be some softback books and there'll be one for each faction released. And they're said to contain information about the history, heraldry, maps, special characters, magic items, spells, historical scenario, and thematic armies of infamy. So this says to me, if you want to play your faction of choice with access to all of the rules, including special characters, including any army compositions that aren't just the bog standard, you're going to have to buy this third book. So strictly speaking, if you want to play your army to a certain degree, you don't need it. But if you want access to all of the rules and potentially not nerf yourself, then you will need to buy a third book as well, which is a little bit disappointing because I think personally I would have liked to have seen all of the rules in the Ravening Hordes books with proper army books perhaps coming later down the line, but again as self-contained books rather than having to buy lots of bits of paper or lots of ebooks. So a little bit of a grumble for me there. Books aside, however, it is starting to look pretty promising for those of people who are looking to get involved in the Tomb King. The leaked content of the release box has been confirmed, so we get a nice image of it rather than the blur images we've seen before, and we can see that there are 93 models in the box. The new Lich Priest on Bone Dragon, which I know a lot of people are quite interested in, which can additionally build a Tomb King on foot. But we can also see that it can be a Tomb King on Bone Dragon. And the rest of the army, 40 Skeleton Warriors, 32 Skeleton Archers, 16 Skeleton Horsemen, and 3 Chariots. So exactly what we were expecting from that leak. We also see the contents of the Bretonnia box. So the Bretonnian box is slightly smaller in that it's got 76 models. There's the new Lord on Royal Pegasus model, which we're told can be built as a Duke or a Baron. There's 12 Knights of the Realm on horseback, 36 Bretonnian men-at-arms, 24 peasants, 3 Pegasus Knights, and a transfer sheet. So overall, this is going to be about 1,250 points worth of models. The same is true of the Tomb King box. And I have to say, not knowing much about the Tomb King box, I'm focusing more on the Bretonnians here. It does feel like it's a box where every model is potentially going to be useful, particularly to a newer player. So there's not a load of chaff in there that you will never get to use. Now, the bottles aren't everything that's in the box. We also get a copy of the rulebook. So if you want either the Bretonnian factions or the Tomb King faction, you won't need to buy the rulebook separately. A 4-page reference sheet, which could be handy because reference sheets are always useful during a game. 20d6 and 1 scatter dice, along with 3 weapon tiles and the 2 whippy sticks. I think the dice choice here is quite interesting, however, and does tell us something about what we can expect from the game. Yes, scatter dice, we're seeing templates, we know that's coming, but there's no artillery dice. Now, it was always the artillery dice which allowed for a misfire in the case of inaccuracies by a weapon, which makes me wonder whether misfire is still going to be part of the game, or whether there's a new mechanic to bring this weapon rule into play. It's always been the classic thing of an artillery piece being able to break down or destroy itself. So I wonder what that's going to look like for Warhammer the Old World. May, of course, not even be there at all. Now, when we'd originally been told there'd be a release of information on Boxing Day, the description used by Games Workshop was an off-white news release. And I'd taken that to mean we'd just be seeing really the Tomb King models that would be available on release in much the same way as we saw the information about Bretonnia quite a few weeks ago now. And the article released on Boxing Day does contain information about some of the new models that are going to be released for the Tomb Kings. The first one we have is the Emissary of Cetra, a flail-armed, presumably special character, infantry model. Looking at this, and actually the more I look at models across the range for the Tomb Kings, certainly the new models, I'm getting really strong vibes of the film The Mummy. We're also seeing Battle Standard Bearer. Again, obviously quite Egyptian in themed. It's quite an intricate looking model. I'm actually quite liking the banner top. It's quite cool. Certainly suitable for a Battle Standard Bearer. And we're also seeing a tomb swarm, so various bones and bits and pieces on an absolute tide of scarabs and scorpions, all very The Mummy-esque in my opinion. The article ends by commenting that for those people wanting to use legacy armies, these will be available shortly after launch in a PDF. So hopefully that'll just be a free download from the website, and that all that's left to reveal will be the pre-order date. The article says there's a suspicion it'll be quite soon, and there's a lot of interactions going on various forums suggesting we're probably looking at something in mid to late January for that. I wouldn't say that the pre-order date is the only thing to be released, however. Another important question which is being shown a lot of interest will be what is the price of the various products. Coming just out of Christmas, early January, when people obviously tend to have to wait a little bit longer for their January paycheck, this could be a pretty expensive month for people. So we will have to see how these models and books are priced. But hey, it all seems to be moving in the right direction, and looking forward very much to an early release in 2024. A chance to get to my old models and hopefully some new models out on the tabletop. Thank you very much for listening as I've looked through the latest release for the Tomb Kings and Bretonnians. Looking forward very much to seeing the game in action. So we'll see where we go from there. So once again, thank you very much for listening. I am Return to the Old World. Have a great day.